Okay. When you have struggled long enough with your weight, there's something that happens, and I want to talk about that today. At first, you start thinking, okay, I just need to find something that works. I haven't found the right diet yet or the right program yet. I just haven't figured out what works for me yet. And so a lot of times when you're in that mode of like, I still need to figure out what works for me, you start changing things like what you eat. You start maybe walking more. Maybe you start a workout program. You decide you're going to get really serious about adding more protein in. You track your food, all of those kinds of things, right? And sometimes you lose some weight. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you do that and you lose weight and you gain it back. That happens a lot with the women that I work with. We're talking about women over 40, over 50, most especially, right? After you do that for long enough, let's call them like rounds or cycles of dieting. After you do those cycles or those rounds long enough and you're not getting the result that you want, something changes. You go from saying, I just haven't figured out what works for me yet, to saying, nothing works for me, or my body just does not respond anymore. I can't get the scale to move anymore. My metabolism is shot, whatever. And I hear that a lot of times with from women, some version of that, or like, I know what to do. I'm doing it. I'm putting the effort in, but I'm not seeing the results from my effort. And so you go from, like I said, that sort of like, okay, I just have to find the right thing, to the idea that there is no such thing as a right thing for me. Nothing is going to work, right? And listen, I have been there, done that. So I totally understand how you get there. If you've spent 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years, hell, some of the women I talk to have been working on this for a decade, and you've spent that time watching your body change, not in the way you want it to change, when you're trying really hard to do a bunch of the things that everybody keeps telling you to do, that you think you're supposed to do, that you did maybe back then when you were in your 30s and worked, and it's not working. Eventually, you're going to start looking at your body pretty freaking suspiciously. But I've been going back through a metabolic protocol of mine, and I've been updating it, and I've been thinking about this whole idea of this shift that happens a lot, because women who come to me for help often have made that switch. They have gone to nothing will work. And I think about I think about it this way. How much evidence do you actually have that your body won't respond? Now, bear with me here. How much evidence do you actually have that your body will not, cannot, isn't responding? And how much evidence do you have that the things you've been trying haven't produced the result you want? Because those are not the same thing, right? And think about that distinction. Think about that distinction. What do we actually mean when we say nothing works? That's where I'd really start to think, because women say that to me all the time. I've tried everything, nothing works. And I know what you mean when you say that. I mean, you don't literally mean that you have attempted every freaking possible invention known to science and medicine, known to man, as they say. What you're saying to me is, Lori, I have been at this for a fucking long time. And that is legitimate. But if I am mentoring, coaching women, I want to know what nothing work or works. I want to know what that actually means. Like, did you try a specific type of diet and nothing happened? Did you lose weight, or maybe there like multiple diets and nothing happened? Did you lose weight and then gain it back? Um, did something kind of work well for like maybe a month or 6 weeks or 2 months even, but then you hit a wall, a plateau, as they say, and the scale wouldn't move anymore? Or did you do it for a while and you think, like, I can't freaking live this way for the rest of my life? Maybe, did you change your food? Did you change workouts? Did you stop drinking? Did you start taking some kind of like supplements or something that you found online? And so you did all of those things, and then you actually kind of don't have any freaking idea which things were actually helping, which things may have been hurting, which things really didn't do anything. And a lot of times it's this one. Did you go back to doing something that worked kind of well when you were 28, 30, 35 even, and you assumed that because it isn't really giving you the same results that it did then, now that you're in your 50s, you decided, okay, my metabolism, my body, that must be the problem. Because those are all different situations, right? And I really don't point that out to play this game of semantics. I'm pointing it out because the conclusion determines what you do next. And if the conclusion is my body doesn't work anymore, then quite frankly, where the hell do you go from there? I mean, you either keep kind of escalating things in like the, go hard restrictions kind of thing, like eating less and less, exercising more and more, cutting out foods, trying this supplement, that try supplement, this diet, that diet, or which happens a lot, I know, and I'm not blaming you for this, or do you give up eventually, right? But if the conclusion is, I haven't actually figured out the combination of things that works for my body, where it is right now, and for my life, the way it is right now, that's different. Now we have something we can investigate a little bit farther. And that is a very different place to stand in and kind of begin. So when we think about all this, I think there are some things that we miss, right? So when you tell me your body's not responding, what that usually means is the scale isn't going down. So, and I think I need to take this kind of little detour here. I'm coming back, I promise, but I think it's really important for me to kind of outline and talk through this. Usually what you mean when you say nothing is working is you say what you mean is that the scale didn't go down for you, right? And obviously you're trying to lose weight. I would say 98% of the women who come to me for help and have questions, they're trying to lose weight. Um, and that matters, right? So I am never, I've told you this a million times. I think, I will, if you haven't heard it before, and this is your first episode, welcome to the Lori philosophy and Lori logic. I am never going to tell you that the scale shouldn't matter to you, that losing weight shouldn't matter to you. Because if it matters, it freaking matters. I know holy hell well it matters to me. The scale matters. Full transparency. It matters less. And the way I prioritize, the way it matters, what I make that mean to me is different, but it has always mattered and it still matters. But your actual weight, what you weigh, the number when you step on that scale, that is one piece of feedback. It can be an important one to you, but it's one. Your body is giving you tons of information all day long. Your cravings are information. Your hunger is information. Digestion, sleep, how you recover from exercise, whether suddenly feel tight in your jeans or you feel bloated, like all of that is information. What happens at night when after dinner, before you go, like everything about that is information. And I think we have a tendency to classify all of those things as like these separate annoyances. I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm bloated, I didn't sleep. Meanwhile, your body is giving you a trail of like breadcrumbs to follow about what's happening. And we're ignoring all of it and just staring at that one number. And here's another thing I see and hear all the time. Women will tell me, but I eat healthy. And she probably does, you probably do. If you're sitting there thinking that, you're not lying. Your breakfast, your lunch might be really, let's just call it on track, right? They might be if you told me, Lori, this is what I ate for breakfast today. This is what I ate for lunch today, or what I ate for breakfast and lunch every day this week. And I listen to it and I go, like, nothing about that sounds unreasonable. But hear me loud and clear when I say this. Healthy foods don't automatically tell me that you're eating in the right way for your body now, for the weight loss goals that you have, for the health goals that you have. Like, healthy food does not automatically tell me if you are eating in a way that supports your energy, if it is supporting your sleep and your recovery. It doesn't tell me if how your body is responding to stress, how it's responding to the kind of sleep that you're getting. So that's why I keep coming back to this idea that we have to stop looking at like individual things in isolation, individual behaviors, individual bits of information in isolation, because your body isn't experiencing those things in isolation. And this is where I think a lot of you get really, really frustrated. You're looking at each individual thing like a list, and you're thinking, but I'm doing that right. I'm doing that right. And this is what's happening. And this is how and what I do is I look at the whole picture and I think, okay, what is this whole picture creating? What's the story? What are the effects in the body that that whole picture is creating? And that's a whole different way to stand back and look at what's happening. And this brings me to something that I've been working on behind the scenes. Some of you already know because you follow me on social media. The protocol that I was talking about earlier in this episode, when women came to me and they would say, like, my body absolutely will not respond. I've tried everything, it will not respond. One of the first things that I would give them is a very short protocol to sort of explore whether they could actually, whether it was true that their body actually would never respond, doesn't respond, can't respond, or if it actually can respond with given the right input, right? Think about a computer system, input, output, not how much food you eat and how much, how many calories you burn, not that way. But I I would look at that as in, okay, we really need to know if that's factual. Like, is your body literally unable to respond or not? And one of the ways I would get them to explore that, investigate first, was to give them that 5-day metabolic protocol that I'm talking about. But here's the thing. So I pulled it out because, quite frankly, I haven't used it in a couple of years with women. Haven't been giving it out, just have been doing things a little bit differently. And I've had quite a number of people ask me for the protocol, or like, are you going to, are you going to offer it again, or whatever? And let me say this. A lot of times when you hear on social media, oh, a lot of women have been asking me, or a lot of people have been asking me for, and it's like, yeah, nobody asked you for that, Sally. Or like one person that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, this is something that I kind of became known for this 5-day protocol and the success that women had with it. And I used to run kind of like little mini groups with it. And so women who have followed me for a long time know what that was about, and I've been getting questions about it. So I pulled it back out. All of that to say, I pulled it back out. But I realized, and kind of side note, if you listened to me talk last week, if you listened to the podcast episode or if you've been following me on social media, you've heard me talk a little bit about this. I created this protocol several years ago, and that's the one that women I used to give women to use. So I pulled it back out and I looked at it and I like went through it and I realized like I have learned a hell of a lot more from a scientific perspective, from a medical sort of perspective. Not that I'm a physician, I'm not an MD, but looking at it from that perspective, looking at it as it applies to the physiology that I've learned so much more about, the physiology of women's, bodies over after they turn 40, especially women in their 50s. So the brain and the body components I've learned a lot about, and I have worked with thousands of women, quite frankly. I have put women through the paces of this protocol, so to speak, thousands and thousands of women. And what I realized is I know a lot more. I also know a lot more about what works and what doesn't work and all of those things. And so I've been updating that protocol. And I've been updating it, and I've been looking at it through kind of this lens of why why were those 5 days so useful, right? And it wasn't because the 5 day protocol magically fixes your metabolism. It wasn't that, because it doesn't. I'll tell you right now, it does not fix your metabolism. And it wasn't really because every woman suddenly lost body fat, because that's ridiculous. To say that you're going to, lose 5 pounds of body fat in 5 days, that is physiologically ridiculous. But for a short period of time, I had women focus and, in a way, focus with the protocol, and in a way also reduce some of the noise. Instead of, well, maybe I'll start working tomorrow, or I'll cut carbs this week, or whatever. I put a handful of really important things together in a way that was very strategic, and they were doing this handful of important things at the same time. And we kept those things in place for several days, for 5 days to be exact. And there's a reason that I have them do it for 5 days. And then we watched. Think of this like an experiment that I would run women through. We held these variables constant. The protocol has the variables. I strategically put them together based on everything that I know, and we watched. And that is part of the magic of this. I just told you there was no magic, but that's the part that's so valuable. We watched what happened. And for a lot of women, I never, ever, ever make promises or guarantees, but for the large majority of women who went through this protocol, the scale moved several pounds. And again, I need to say it, I need to emphasize it, not because they lost body fat. Changes in water and sodium and digestion and food volume and inflammation, all of those things can make the scale number move pretty damn quickly. So there was that. But here's why I still care about that response, the scale response. Something freaking changed. The body was not sitting there refusing to participate like they thought was the situation they were in. It responded when conditions changed. And when you have spent months or years or decades telling yourself that your metabolism is shot, your body absolutely cannot respond, you cannot lose weight, that change, that response in that short period of time, that's useful because it is freaking evidence. And this is a really important distinction. I am not bringing this thing back because I think women should live their lives in like 5-day cycles of 5-day protocols. God, no. That's not what this is about. I pulled it out to update it and I'm bringing it back not for that and not because I want you to follow some 5-day plan for the rest of your life. And I'm certainly not giving you another short-term diet where you like white knuckle it through 5 days and on Friday morning the scale number drops and you celebrate and then you go straight back to whatever the hell you were doing before. No, 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 because that doesn't teach you or me anything. I'm more interested in using this 5 days, like I said, as an investigation. And it's an individual investigation for each of you who does it. It's an investigation to see what happens to your hunger, your cravings, your energy, what happens to your digestion, what happens to your scale. That is part of it. How does your scale number respond? And most importantly, what do we learn from this investigation? Because what we learn from it, what you learn from it, gives you somewhere to go next. 5 days is not the destination. This isn't a freaking 5-day detox. The 5 days isn't the destination, but it's enough time for you to create some structured consistency, reduce some of the noise, and start collecting some real evidence. And and here may be kind of the part that I'm even more interested in, or maybe most interested in, because after you've been unsuccessful enough times, right? You've attempted so many times. For some of you, again, years, months, years, decades. After so many unsuccessful attempts, you don't just lose confidence in this diet or that diet or whatever, right? You lose confidence kind of in yourself. And I talked about that some last week, right? You start saying things like, I just can't stick to anything. I don't have any willpower. Um, and when you start to lose confidence in yourself that way, eventually, if you still are trying, every time you try again, you already have an expectation that it's not going to work, that you're going to fail. And quite frankly, that's a pretty shitty place to operate from because now everything becomes proof that nothing is going to work and that you can't succeed. And it becomes like, see, happened again. Here I go again. Can't do anything, can't stick with it. But what happens if you collect a different kind of information? You collect a different kind of evidence. What happens when you say, I'm going to do this for 5 days, not forever, and I'm going to do this for 5 days, this being something that's healthy, that is designed in the right way for my physiology, for my brain, my body at this stage in life. So I'm going to do this for 5 days. I'm not going to do it forever. Helen might even like do it perfectly for the 5 days because that's life, right? But 5 days. And then you actually do it. And maybe your cravings change or you feel better, you have more energy. Maybe your hunger changes. Likely the scale does move. Maybe you even learn some things that you didn't expect to learn. Well, now we have different evidence, right? Not finally, like nothing will work for me. And I want to say this too. You have different evidence, but you don't have the evidence that like, oh, I finally proved to myself that I'm good enough or I'm worthy. And I shouldn't make fun of that, but that's not the evidence that I'm talking about at all. Your worth has absolutely nothing to do with the fucking scale. I've said that a million times. I hope that you hear that. That's where I stand on it. Your worth, the scale can matter to you, but it shouldn't matter to you because it determines and dictates your value as a woman, as a human being. So we're not talking about, oh, you have evidence that you're finally worthy, because you're fucking worthy no matter what the scale says. But you have belief now about whether or not you are capable of influencing your health, influencing your body, influencing your weight. That evidence matters. And sometimes, I'm sorry, like, no, I'm not freaking sorry. Sometimes a small win is enough to make you willing to investigate further instead of throwing your hands up in the air and deciding that menopause is destroying or has destroyed your life, has sentenced you to living in a body that you are so unhappy and uncomfortable in. And here's the part that when I do this again, and I'm going to tell you that I'm doing this, I'm going to tell you how you can get in on this. But I've already shared on social media channels and sent emails out, so you already know if you're following me in those places or if you're on my email list. But there's something that we're going to do with this round, if you will, this 5-day experience that I have never ever done before. I'm doing it with you. I have not followed this protocol in many years, and my body isn't the same as when I originally created it and tested it either. I'm older, I'm postmenopausal, my life is very, very different. My routines are different because my life is different. And I'm going to be very vulnerable and transparent with you. I've had some weight creep back up on me lately because I've gone through some changes. And so I'm not standing on the sidelines and going to hand you some PDF and say, "Oh, here, good luck, have fun, let me know how it goes." I'm going to follow this new updated version with you. I'm going to pay attention to what's happening in my body, and I'm going to show you what's happening, what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, what I'm noticing, and I'll show you what happens with my own scale. And I really think that's going to make this even more useful for you and for me, quite frankly, and it's going to make it more fun because I'm not pretending over here that I'm sitting in some sort of like magical universe where I've solved all my problems forever and I never have to use what I know and what I've learned about this um journey, that like I've just arrived and I never have a struggle. That's not how this works. I'm not in a place where life never gets busy and my body always does what it's supposed to do. So I'm going to do this updated version in my current body too. And I'm going to tell you how that all is all going to look, okay? But if you're hearing this episode, and especially if you're hearing this episode and you've been sitting there thinking, or you've been saying like nothing works for you anymore, what I want you to do is get even more specific. Think about, what exactly have you tried? What specifically happened? Like, what worked, even maybe temporarily? What could you not stick with? You couldn't sustain? What patterns kind of crept up? What's changed about your body over the time when you've been trying things? How has your life changed? And what evidence are you using to conclude that my body won't or can't respond? Because maybe there is some truth in some specific way that needs more investigation, like, or a different kind of intervention. I'm not saying that there aren't some women who have some medical reasons that need to be addressed that have something to do with your body not responding. I'm not saying that. But that is, in my experience, a very, very tiny, tiny number of people. So I'm not going to say that there's not that little tiny, but I'm also not going to sit here and pretend that physiology doesn't matter. It absolutely does. And so, meaning you get to being over 50, your hormones change, your metabolism changes, your muscle, percentage on your body changes, your bone density change. Like there's a shit ton that happens at this stage in life that physiologically is different. And that matters. Des- Definitely that matters. But I also don't want you to take another several months or years and just get completely frustrated by weight loss attempts that are not right for you or that are never going to work for you. And then you turn them into some sort of permanent diagnosis about your body's broken down metabolism and like just complete inability to look and feel the way you want to look and feel. That's not it. Maybe we don't have enough information to know yet. And that's something that we can do something about. That's something you can do something about. So, if the timing of this episode kind of feels perfect for you because you're feeling that way, and if you're listening to this on this episode should drop on August like 20th or so. So, if you're listening to this around that timeline, I'm going to give you something to use that gives you a chance to investigate some of this for yourself. I'm doing that 5 day protocol. I've updated it, made it so much better, simplified how you're going to go about it. And we're going to use it. I'm going to use it, and I'm doing it with a whole lot of women who are already on board with me. We're starting on Monday, August 31st. So you still have plenty of time to take a look at what it, if you want more information than what I've already given you, I'll send you some more information. You can take a look at, what it entails. It's completely free, no strings attached. I will, if you want to do it, I will give you the framework that we're going to follow. I will explain to you what we're doing, why we're doing it. I'm going to do it right alongside you. And during those 5 days, I'm going to help you with understanding it and with what to pay attention to so that you know what your body is actually telling you, not just that, the number on the scale got smaller after the 5 days. So, if you're curious, maybe you're thinking, okay, like, I don't know, but I've piqued your curiosity. I'm putting a link in the description under this episode. Go there, click the link, read the information. You don't have to decide that you're doing it before you click the link. Take a look at how I've outlined how it's going to work during the 5 days, and you can decide if you think that's doable for you. If it feels doable, put your name and your email down, that registers you. Doesn't feel doable, you've clicked, you've read, nothing, no harm done, right? No harm, no foul, as they say. But if it does feel doable, you stick your name in, you stick your email address in, make sure you please spell check, double check your email address because a lot of times, or there have been times where women have said, I didn't get it. And we go digging in, and what I find is that, there's a little typo mistake in your email. So double check your email address, put your name in, and you're registered. That's it. I'll make sure that you get everything you need before August 31st. And listen, and you're in. You're in when you do that, okay? If you've spent years thinking that your body doesn't respond anymore, I'd really like for you to come do this with me. At minimum, click that link and read what is involved because it's not going to take you a lot of time. And here's the thing, that 5 days is going to pass and you're going to eat something, you're going to exist, you're going to live for 5 days anyway. You might as well freaking give yourself a chance to do this investigation, learn some things, find out what the information, the evidence really is there. Because before you accept a conclusion that your body is broken, you can't lose weight, you can't feel better, I think we need to collect some better evidence. And you're welcome to come join me as we do that. Thanks for being here. I hope you are hearing this in a timely fashion so that you can do that 5 days with me. If you're not, if you're hearing this and it's months later, reach out to me and I am happy to send you the 5 day protocol. I may not be doing it myself at the time, but I'm happy to send it to you. And you can ask me whatever questions you want. But if you are listening to this on August 20th ish, I think that's right, then click the link in the description, take a look and see if you want to do this and give yourself a chance to collect some actual relevant information that will give you a starting place to know where you want to go next with this. Thanks for being here. I always appreciate having these conversations with you, and I appreciate you spending time with me. I'll see you right back here next time.